Okay, welcome to another Orbiter 2010 video. This video is a spur of the moment thing that I'm doing as kind of a video response to TFC and VideoSpaceFx, who have recently posted a couple of KSC to Wideawake international speedruns. So I thought that I would post a video of my own and kind of just explain my thought process as I go through this. Now obviously nobody has any problems getting up off the runway, so we'll just kind of jump in and get going. That way the video isn't overly long. Full power on the main engines as we roll down the runway. And as I'm rolling down the runway, I will comment that I am using a joystick. I do think that's important for this flight, because when you use the keyboard, you know, it's basically the button is either on or it's off. There's really no in-between state. Whereas when you're using a joystick, you know, you've got that analog control and you can put in just a little bit of left and a little bit of right, or just pitch up a little bit and pitch down a little bit. I think that's very important for this kind of flight. Obviously, when you're out in space, having a joystick doesn't matter in the slightest. But for these types of, you know, seat of your pants flying things, I think that having a joystick is pretty important. Okay, enough about that. Now I'm basically just going blindly over to 110. That's roughly the heading I'm aiming for, and I can always use glide slope MFD over there on the left to, you know, let me know basically how far off I am. Right now it says I'm negative 0.8, and it's slowly correcting, so I'm on track. I don't pitch up too much more steeply than about 50 degrees. I don't think that pitch is necessarily extremely important, so just whatever you're comfortable with. But once we get up much above 10 kilometers, I like to level out. That way I can be on my way to being completely flat. By the time I'm at about 20 kilometers or a little bit lower than that even. So that's the thought process here at the moment. I'm now at 0.0 according to glide slope, so I might start putting in a little bit of actually a little bit of left is what I need. Now I need to start leveling out, and I do have my joystick configured with one of the buttons to open the scram doors, which again just makes life more convenient, but that's not absolutely necessary.
Mach 2.
There's Mach 2, so as soon as I get a little bit lower on the vertical speed, go ahead and open those scram doors now. And what I do is I actually reach down to the keyboard and I press Control equal to apply the scram, because when you try to do it with the mouse, it's just overly difficult in my opinion. There's Mach, whatever it was, Mach 3 I think. Now we do need to pitch up here, but you don't want to overdo the pitch, because you'll end up with a really high vertical speed. Putting in a little bit of left bank there because I'm noticing I'm getting a bit off track with glide slope. Okay, we're heating up, but I don't want my vertical speed to get too high, so I'm actually going to go ahead and roll over now. That'll help me keep the vertical speed under control. And I don't mind being in the yellow or even in the red. I just don't want to be, you know, I don't want to have the airframe overheat or anything like that. And I'll worry about my alignment there with Wideawake here in a little bit. I really need to focus here at the beginning on just the vertical speed and the altitude. That's more important. We've got plenty of time to get the alignment with Wideawake. So it's showing up now at a negative 3.1, but that's okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and roll over again because my vertical speed's pretty well under control. And notice these movements are fairly smooth. And again, that's the benefit of the joystick. Maybe pitch up a little bit more. And now I'm going to start banking a bit to the left, correct that alignment there with Wideawake.
Mach 16.
And I'm going to kind of hold this profile until I'm closer to 60 kilometers, then I'll roll over for the long glide phase.
Warning, scram fuel low, Mach 19. Warning, scram temperature.
Okay, going to go ahead and close the scram doors.
Engines overheating.
And we're going to go ahead and roll over now. Got all the vertical speed we need.
Mach 21. Information. APU fuel 20%. Mach 22.
And it is a little difficult to commentate and fly this at the same time, so just bear with me. I will point out all important facts though. Gonna go ahead and pull down. Now immediately what I do here is I'm gonna put in some center of gravity shift.
Mach 24.
If you look down at the cog shift in the center, you'll notice that it's down to negative 0.8. Hang on, I gotta concentrate here.
Mach 25.
And the reason for that is because it makes the vessel nose heavy, and that's actually what we want. Because once we get up to orbital velocity and higher,
26.
you know, obviously at that point, you know, the vessel just really wants to climb out into space. So without having that cog shift, you're constantly fighting to keep the vessel just in the atmosphere.
Mach 27 plus.
And notice I'm still using atmospheric controls. I'm not using rotation. Okay, now we've got just a little bit of time on our hands, so we can go ahead and go down to the bottom panel and dump the scram.
Warning, fuel dump. Warning, scram fuel depleted.
And we can do our RCS transfer. And I just want to keep myself, I'm a little low at the moment. I want to get a little higher than this because my dynamic pressure at this point, you know, if you're down to around 68 kilometers or so, it'll be a little higher than it needs to be, which means you're getting excess drag. So getting up above 70, but maybe below 71. But again, watch the vertical speed. Okay, now I'm going to go back down to the bottom panel and get ready to shut off the RCS transfer. Gonna go with that.
Speed off.
Now we basically just keep the main engines going until we're at the speed that we want to be at. And I haven't found the ideal velocity yet. You know, if you go too fast, then you won't have enough fuel for braking. But I think I can go a little bit more than I did in my speed run number 4, which was 11,500 and some change. I think we can do a little bit more than that. Coming up on main engine cutoff here shortly. Maybe we'll go out to like 11.8 this time just to see what that does for us. And we'll go with that. Main engine cutoff. And now it's the long glide phase. And what I'm going to do now is just concentrate. First of all, never take your eyes off the altitude and the vertical speed, because you blink and you will be at 75 kilometers, and at that point you can't keep your vessel in the atmosphere. But I also need to keep an eye on the alignment with Wideawake. And it gets a little confusing actually when you're flying inverted, because when the velocity vector is above the horizon, it feels like you need to be turned one way, and when it's below the horizon, you need to be banked the other way. So it's a little confusing. Looks like I'm banked the right way, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in a bit more bank. And I'm going to coast until I'm, you know, roughly 3,000 kilometers from Wideawake. I found if I get too much closer than that, there's a little bit of play there, but if you get too much closer than 3,000 kilometers, it's really, really difficult to slow down in time. In fact, in one attempt, I remember I went down to, I think it was 2,700 kilometers, and I overshot the base, and I was 100 kilometers past it, and it was, you know, by the time you turn around and come back, it's definitely not a speed run at that point. So you can see here we have pretty good control, hanging out right around 70 kilometers, or, you know, under 71, and everything's looking pretty good. We're 4,700 kilometers from the base according to glide slope up in the upper left, and I can see in the bottom left with aerobrake MFD, I'm happy with that alignment. It indicates that I'm a little bit north of the island, but that's actually what I would prefer. If anything, I want to be just a tad bit north of the runway, not south, because the runway alignment, if you come in south, you're at a really awkward angle for landing. But if you come in just a little bit north of the island, that actually works out really well. Happy here at 71 and a little over 71 kilometers. Still have really good control. Vertical speed is just, you know, just a bit of, just barely touching the joystick up and down, and I have just perfect control. And that's because of the center of gravity shift. It makes the vessel nose heavy, and that just gives you the control that you need. It's better than using the elevator trim, in my opinion. Okay, and I'm getting a little losing focus on the alignment there. I need to definitely go back the other way a bit. But if anything, I want to be positive 1 or so degrees, not negative. Because if I'm -1, then I'm south of the island, and I don't want that. So if I'm a little bit off in the positive side, that's fine with me. Down to 3,500 kilometers. Now, the part that really is difficult, the hardest part of this flight, in my opinion, is this flip over maneuver that's coming up here very shortly. This is the point, this is the part that took me the longest time to figure out. And basically what we're going to do is, coming up here shortly, I'm going to press Alt-M to center this gravity so it's back to 0.00 across the board. And then I'm just going to let myself get a little bit of higher in altitude, and we're going to be doing that very soon. We're down to 3,100 kilometers. So I'm going to go ahead here in just a moment, actually right now, go ahead and press Alt-M, and you notice immediately when I do that, the vessel just pulls back out towards space. So I got to watch it. I got to pull backwards the other way so that my vertical speed doesn't get out of control. But I want to get up to at least 75 kilometers because that will get my dynamic pressure low enough that I can do this flip over maneuver. But you don't want your vertical speed to just go crazy. You know, notice I'm at 72 kilometers, my vertical speed's 100. I don't really want to get much more than that, so I'm pulling in. Actually, I'm going to have to let it go a little higher because, all right, now I'm going to press H a couple times because I need to be able to see the center position here. And, okay, we're at 75 kilometers. So now I need to go rotation.
Rotation. Translation. Off.
Turn pitch off.
Rotation.
And I need to pull in toward the Earth. And at 270, I'm going to engage the main engines. So right basically now. And I'm basically pointing straight down toward the Earth. And notice my vertical speed is just, I'm killing off all the vertical speed right now. And I'd like to stay under 78 kilometers, but that's not quite going to happen. Now as the vertical speed's almost 0, I'm pulling back in, going basically toward the retrograde position. And now I'm just going to burn completely, basically retrograde, but not 100% retrograde because I need to keep the vertical speed under control. So I still need a bit of down pitch to keep the vertical speed from just climbing like crazy. And I'm just using as much kill rotate as I have to keep the vessels aligned. And I'm using yaw, I'm using all the controls in fact. But notice the vertical speed's coming down, altitude's coming down. The alignment with the base is 0.9 on the positive side, which is what I want. Because that means I'm going to be a little bit north of the island. Okay, vertical speed's pretty well under control, so I'm going to put most of the thrust into almost straight retrograde at this point. And you do have to fight the vessel a little bit even at this altitude. It's not too bad, but there's a little bit of fussiness going on because we're still getting some atmosphere, and the vessel's not very aerodynamic when it's backwards. So you have to use a lot of kill rotate, a lot of yaw. Okay, vertical speed's almost 0, so I need to pitch down just a little bit. I do not want to climb. Putting in a bit of yaw. Just to keep myself on that center line. Okay, vertical speed's going deep, heading down, so now I can afford to put more of my engine thrust into straight retrograde.
Information. APU running.
Okay, at this point we should be able to hold retrograde. Now I'm just kind of waiting for the main engine to burn out, and or when my when aerobrake
Main fuel
MFD.
low. Mach system reset.
Okay, getting ready to kill main engines here shortly.
Mach 25.
Watching aerobrake MFD mostly at this point.
Mach 24. Mach 23.
Okay, the green indicator.
Warning,
Okay, we're out of
main
fuel.
depleted. System reset.
So now I'm just going to yaw. You can either yaw or flip. I don't think it makes a lot of difference. Yaw straight around to the center position, or prograde basically. And we overshot just a little bit.
APU fuel.
And now I'm going to press
10%
L. I've already got my autopilot set up. You want to do that ahead of time, obviously. And now I'm just putting in a bit of additional AOA, watching aerobrake MFD to help me determine how much I need. We can go a bit long. Notice I'm a little bit long at the moment. That's
Mach
okay.
22.
That'll just get us there a little bit faster. And hands off at this point. It's there's not a lot I can do. Just waiting to come down through the atmosphere. May need to bank a bit to the right, just so that we don't go too far north
Mach
of the island.
21.
And again, there's just not a lot you can
Mach
do once you reach this
20.
point. My hands are completely free. You know, we just have to wait for the braking maneuver to take course on its own.
Mach 19.
You can really hear that atmosphere now. And there's the island out in front of us. We're going to be getting red hot here. Put in a bit more
Mach
up
18.
AOA because I'm coming up a little longer than I want.
Mach 17. Mach 16.
May end up going past the island and having to come back and land the other way. That's not necessarily a horrible thing, but you know, it just means we didn't. Means we waited a little bit too long to start the braking.
Mach 14.
Yeah, I'm gonna pass over the island.
Mach 13. Mach 12.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Mach 11. Mach 10. Mach 9.
Just waiting for my velocity to come down enough that I can disengage the autopilot.
Mach 8.
Go ahead and turn surface controls on now.
Off. Mach 7.
Overshot the
Mach
island by 20
6.
kilometers and still going. Okay, autopilot off.
Mach 5.
Immediately eliminate any.
Warning, wing stress.
Watch that.
System reset.
I was trying to say eliminate any elevator trim that the autopilot put in.
Mach 4.
Now I'm just gonna have to do just a hard turn here. This is not going to be a record by any means, but again, it's a little difficult to commentate and do this flight because it's a lot of intense concentration that's required for this. Yeah, 60 kilometers out past the island. That is not good at all. So again, I just let myself go a little too far before I started the braking. Okay, got the island in sight, so I'm just gonna look for it here, go upside down if I have to, and You know, again, I'm not trying to really clean landing here. I just want to get down fast. So I don't care how ugly the landing looks. Just trying to get down fast as I can here.
Mach 2.
Trying to put the velocity vector right on the runway there, basically. Need to get, obviously, a bit more to the right. But again, you know, it's not trying to get a nice, elegant landing. I just want to get the thing down on the ground and get wheel stop. Matter of fact, if I hadn't overshot the island, this would have been my best time, actually. But you can see how much time you lose, you know, on the landing. It's really difficult to get a good speed run if you just use up a lot of time on the landing. So our velocity.
Warning. APU fuel low. Warning. Down. Gear deployed. Gear up.
Wanted the air brake, not the.
2000.
Need to slow down. Once I get down below 200 meters a second,
System reset.
then I can afford to throw out the gear. Again, there's no hurry on that either.
900, 800, 700, 600.
Get the gear out.
500, 400, 300. Gear down and locked. 200.
Okay, now I gotta concentrate so I don't crumble to everything here.
50, 30, 15,
Okay.
6. 1.
And we're
Wheels
down. Wheels down, and I didn't get a chance to open the retro doors to do a quicker braking, so we're at 21 minutes.
100 knots.
Hang on, we're not wheel stop yet.
Warning. Oxygen depleted. System
21
reset.
minutes, 33 seconds, and we ran out of oxygen just in time. So, happiness to our pilot, he didn't suffocate. Okay, so hopefully
APU fuel 4%.
hopefully that's somewhat helpful going through my thought process there, and I will see everybody in the next video.